The icy wind cut through the streets of New York like a blade. Cars honked. People rushed past in thick coats and scarves, their heads down, lost in their own world. Nobody paid attention to the old man sitting on the pavement, his back pressed against a graffiti-stained wall, his frail body wrapped in layers of torn fabric that barely kept the cold out. His name was Frank. Frank had been out here for years. He didn't even remember the last time he had a hot meal or slept in a real bed. His days blurred into one another, waking up stiff, scavenging for food, asking strangers for spare change, watching their expressions tighten as they avoided eye contact. It was a routine, a miserable, endless routine. But today felt different. Frank spotted a young man walking toward him. He looked familiar, tall, well-dressed with sharp features and a presence that made people glance at him as he passed. There was something about him, something that made Frank hesitate. Still, hunger overpowered pride. With a trembling voice, Frank spoke up. "Hey, kid, can you spare $1?" The young man stopped. That alone was shocking. Most people ignored him. Some tossed a few coins without breaking their stride. But this man paused, his gaze locking onto Frank's with an intensity that made his breath hitch. Then, instead of reaching for his pocket, the young man crouched down to his level. "What's your name?" he asked. Frank swallowed hard. He hadn't heard those words in a long time. "Frank," he murmured. The young man nodded. "I'm Barron. Barron." The name sent a jolt through Frank's brain. Barron Trump, the son of one of the most famous men in the world. The realization made Frank shift uncomfortably. He wasn't used to important people acknowledging his existence, let alone kneeling in front of him. Barron's voice was calm, steady. "How long have you been out here, Frank?" Frank exhaled a shaky breath. "Too long." For a moment, Barron didn't say anything. He just stared, really stared, like he was trying to understand everything Frank had been through. And then, without breaking eye contact, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. Frank expected a crumpled bill, maybe a 5 if he was lucky. But when Barron placed something in his hand, Frank's fingers twitched in shock. It wasn't $1. It wasn't 5. It was a $100 bill, and then another, and another. Frank's breath caught in his throat. His eyes darted from the money to Barron's face, searching for some kind of catch. "Kid, I can't take this." Barron shook his head. "Yes, you can. And you will. But Frank, money won't fix everything. You need something more." Frank's hands trembled as he clutched the cash. He had no idea what Barron meant, until the young man pulled out his phone and made a call. Frank listened, heart pounding, as Barron spoke to someone in a calm but commanding tone. He heard words like homeless outreach, job placement, permanent shelter. Frank's mind was spinning. He had spent years being ignored, years being treated like a burden. And now, a billionaire's son was not only helping him, but making sure his entire life could change. When Barron hung up, he looked Frank right in the eyes and said, "Someone's coming for you. You're not alone anymore." Frank felt a lump in his throat. His vision blurred. He had asked for $1, just enough to buy a sandwich, something to get him through another miserable night. But instead, he was being given a chance. A real one. His lips quivered as he forced out a whisper. Why would you do this?" Barron stood up, dusting off his coat. Then he smiled, a real, genuine smile. "Because kindness doesn't cost a thing, Frank, and everybody deserves a fresh start." And just like that, Barron Trump turned and walked away, disappearing into the bustling crowd. Frank sat there, gripping the money, his heart pounding. For the first time in years, something flickered inside him. Hope. That night, for the first time in a long time, Frank didn't sleep on the cold pavement. And it all started with 5 simple words. "Can you spare $1?"